afternoon. I'm going to be talking to you about the secrets of success for innovation that I've found in my career. A little bit about my background. So I spent a lot of time, almost 20 years in CPG, consumer packaged goods innovation, built a couple of innovation centers from scratch, which was great fun, and worked for more than 5 different food companies. So what I'm sharing with you today is based on that experience, right? Firsthand of leading innovation, doing innovation, and these are the things that I've learned work. So I picked 3 areas to share with you today. So let's jump right into the first one about ideas aren't the hard part. You're like, okay, Andrea, so what? Right? You're telling me the ideas aren't hard. Well, what exactly is hard? So the thing that I have found that is absolutely the most difficult thing is people who are attached to the old ideas and escaping from the old ideas. So what do I mean by that? The phrase that absolutely makes me cringe and roll my eyes is we've always done it this way, right? I have such a difficult time with that, right? So change is key to making innovation successful. So what does this look like? How do we do that? Right? So one of the key things to make innovation successful is making sure it's enforced, endorsed, by top leadership, as well as having shared responsibility and accountability with the leadership team. I love this boat example, right? If everybody's not aligned, same with the bus on the wheels rolling off. If everybody's not aligned and rowing in the same direction, you're going to have a really hard time. So what exactly does that look like? I pulled an example that I think is amazing from Indra, who used to be the CEO at Pepsi. And again, change is not optional. And I love this quote from her is, I told everyone if they don't change, I'd be happy to attend their retirement parties, right? You can't be much more straightforward than that, very clear on what it is. I'm also someone who, I've led insights and believe in data. And data has always done me right as far as making innovation successful. So is there proof that this works? And there absolutely is. Looking at one of the top sources of information and innovation, right? There's Nielsen Breakthrough and there's IRI Pacesetters. So looking back when she was leading this, what were the results? And they had 3 major breakthrough in the top 25 and over 7 products launched in that year that were over 246 million in sales, right? So the endorsement and clear direction from the top is absolutely critical to getting innovation right. And proof is in what she did and the results in market. So one of the things that's great too that Indra did was not being afraid to try again, right? So Crystal Pepsi, as some of you may know, was launched a long time ago, but the market timing wasn't right and it failed. But the ability to not be afraid to try something again, recognize a mistake, and that maybe it wasn't the right timing for market and bringing something back is absolutely awesome. So, all right, so I've talked a lot about what other people can do. So let's talk about what we can do here.
All I do is win, 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 no matter what. Got money on my mind, I can never get enough.
So what can we do that helps innovation win? That is within our control. And that's what I'm going to share with you next, right? First of all, one of the biggest mistakes I've seen, and I don't know if this was a 3M thing or Post-it note or just that people think brainstorming is fun, but a lot of people think innovation starts with ideation and with ideas. And that is a big mistake. And that's actually not where it starts. In order for it to be successful, innovation needs to start with the consumer. And any innovation that I've ever done that's been successful is always started with the consumer. So how do we do that? We got to give consumers exactly what they want. So one of the things, and there's a reason this was called Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will not come. It's a lie. It's something that worked for Kevin Costner. Again, the title of the movie, Field of Dreams, but that's not how it works in reality. And there's a reason Kevin looks extremely confused and is alone in a major cornfield. So there is a discipline to creating what consumers want. And here's what it looks like. There's several things that you absolutely must do to get this right. So first is solve a need, right? The biggest thing where consumers fail is when products don't match up to something they need or want, right? I use need and want interchangeably. And one of the examples I love to show here is bottled water for pets. I have a dog, he's very handsome, but I'm not buying him bottled water, right? He drinks puddles, he's not picky. And then you look at this, Thirsty Dog is the brand name, and the hero cat in the picture, right? So several things going wrong. A couple other examples, Pepsi AM. People don't need to be told that they can drink their soda in the morning. I'm a huge, Diet Coke drinker, and drink it in the morning without them putting an AM label on it. So again, it needs to solve a need that consumers, and something that consumers actually want. It also really needs to fit with the brand. I think these are great examples of things that absolutely do not fit with the brand. And not to pick on Colgate, but I'm going to. And again, hindsight's 2020. But is there a reason to believe that Colgate can bring you food, right? Colgate makes toothpaste and mouthwash. They make something you spit out. So why am I going to believe that these guys, even though it's a beautiful hero food shot, that this is something these guys can do great, right? It just doesn't make sense. And here's the thing, if you ask and talk to consumers, I'm sure if you talk to Colgate users, they probably would have told you this. The other key that I see too, and this is often one of those things that people forget, it's like, oh, we're going to bring in price later. Yeah, no, don't do that. It needs to be, your innovation needs to be at a price consumers are willing to pay. Too often this happens where it's like, oh, it's wonderful, it's great. Well, it's going to cost you 10 bucks. Oh, well, not so exciting. So very critical to bring in what the price is early on to determine if consumers are truly willing to pay. The other key area is making sure to differentiate, right? And I'm a true believer, if there is no differentiation, there is no innovation. And for sure, there is no sustainable innovation. And what I mean by that is if it's not differentiated, it's not going to last in market. You're going to be on this churn of redoing something every year because it's going to be kicked out of retail because it's not going to be making the turns or velocity that's needed to sustain itself. So key point, innovation doesn't start with copying what's already available. And I'm a true believer that everything can be made better. And I use two examples of categories I think are kind of boring. No offense to anybody that works in these categories, but chapstick and vacuum cleaners. Come on. If you can innovate in those, you can innovate in anything, truly, right? But think about a couple things that happened here, right? Technology was an enabler for this. Design. And then also, especially when it comes to vacuum cleaner, convenience, doing things to make consumers' lives better, right? That is always a factor. And usually they're willing to pay more. Bringing this down to something in the food industry is another example I really like, is basing an innovation on consumer behavior and observing them. And that's what I believe, I'm backing into this, but this is my belief, is how these couple of brands got there on their innovation, right? So if you think about Pyrex, right? The infamous measuring cup that you probably get when you're married or wedding showers, baby showers, not baby showers, but whatever it is, right? They're kind of indestructible, hard to break. So there's no reason really to buy one again, right? But OXO and this other brand came out with innovation. A couple things, right? When you hold it up, it's not at counter height. It's at counter height for maybe a child, but not for adult. You look at it, your behavior is looking down on it. And it's hard to see exactly what it is. So the latest innovation, it actually tells you, so you don't have to figure it out, right? It's digital. And here's the beautiful thing for this. By simplifying consumers' lives and actually looking at what their behavior is, consumers are willing to pay more. Personally, I'm not paying 20 bucks for a measuring cup. I will pay 8 bucks. But consumers are willing to pay more for their lives to be more convenient, simpler, and just the benefits of that. Again, key point of difference that consumers see and are willing to pay for. The key thing too is also to have a point of difference versus competition. So I'm giving you an example from my past, and this was Jimmy Dean entrees that we launched. So we looked at this. Aunt Jemima was in the market at the time, and this is what their product looked like. We were charging $1 more. Beautiful food, looks a lot better. Definitely think we have a point of difference. Well, the mistake that I made was thinking about point of difference only versus the competition and not our own portfolio. What actually ended up happening on this was we evolved or iterated the concept too far from the original proposition that was validated. So when we did this, it was full links of meat, full strips of bacon. What we did is we iterated it to what we could make. And guess what? When we iterated it to what we make, it really looked like something already in our portfolio because we were using that method to make it, like bowls. So guess what happened? It ended up coming or sourcing from our own portfolio, was not incremental, and was a failure. So great learning there. So failure definitely sucks, but the big thing is trying again, and it teaches. The other thing too, as a brand marketer, growing up as a brand marketer, is it's all in positioning. And Edison got this one right? I have not failed. I just found 10,000 ways that won't work, right? So innovation is something that absolutely takes tenacity, trying over, pick yourself up, love this as a theme song, and trying over. And the key thing is really learning from what you did. And since I gave you one of my failures, I'm also going to give you something that did work, so you know I'm legit. But the other key thing is really thinking about when you're doing innovation, it needs to be about consumers' reality, not yours, right? That's the importance of getting out, talking to consumers, and asking somebody outside your organization. So here's a great example, right? Thinking about what consumers eat and what their usage behavior is. So this is something I introduced at Johnsonville. It was their first fully cooked breakfast product, right? So what do consumers do? They actually don't fry it up every morning. They use it in a microwave because there's starve time, and this is pre-COVID, but nobody wants to take 20 minutes, clean a pan, right? You put it on a paper towel in the microwave, takes a couple minutes, and taste just as good, right? That's the other key. The product's got to form. It's got to taste as good as fresh would, or pretty close. The other thing is, amazingly enough, even as marketers, we give a 12 pack, right? And as you see, consumers don't eat 12 at a time, right? They take out a couple. So one of the key things in this innovation was offering a resealable package because we know their behavior is only to eat 2 or 3 at a time, right? The other key thing about this was it's food. People like to see what they're getting, right? So the competitor was in a box where you couldn't see the product. This is meat. You want to be able to judge the quality and look at the product. So those 3-4 things were key things to making this over $100 million platform and very successful in market. And we weren't first to market either. Jimmy Dean had already created this category, been in there for 25 years, but we came in with a point of difference that consumers saw and were willing to pay for. All right, last but not least, some pages for my innovation playbook, but I think all of you, we have never worked for any leadership team, including myself, that is patient, right? And everybody wants to go faster. And how do you do that? And these are things that actually worked for me. So I'm sure there'll be some disagreement to this, but this is stuff I put in play that worked for me in innovation. First of all, is the best way to jumpstart is leveraging existing research. Anytime I came into an organization to lead innovation, I looked at what research was previously done. There are piles, whether it's a stack, hopefully it's electronic now and not all binders, but custom research that you have done that you can learn from. And starting there is the quickest way to jumpstart, gets what I call some quick wins in innovation to get things done. The other thing is syndicated data. Now, the key to this is everybody has the same data. We are all looking at the same trends, right? The same megatrends, the same consumer behaviors. So one of the other key things to going faster is to be able to learn faster than your competition, right? And so you have to look beyond the syndicated data, but connect the dots and figure it out faster than your competition is. The other key thing is, I think we all have this, but you've tested concepts before. And this is an example from Basie's. And Basie's probably got a huge database of things. Like if you started and the history isn't there in those stacks that I showed, likely Basie's has and could put it into a spreadsheet what your results were and what your concepts were. But one of the keys is going back over there. Understand what went wrong on future concepts. Don't retest old concepts. Like, why waste the money? Takes 4 weeks. You can get sometimes faster, 2 weeks. Why waste the time and the money of doing things over again that didn't work and not understanding why it didn't work? So, big proponent of not reworking failures. I don't know what it is, but a lot of times teams will look at this and say, oh, okay, well, we got to get those things at the bottom to work. No, you don't. Leave them alone. Don't do it. Work on the ones that are outstanding and ready. And this is Basie's language, but don't work on the risky failures. Do you see the number of things that need to be worked on? Leave them alone. It failed for a reason. Focus on the things that win. And if you didn't get anything that won, you need to go back and look and understand the why in it. But I absolutely don't believe in trying to rework failures to get them to work. Start with what's successful and resonating with consumers. Don't make something that isn't working, that they don't like, try to work because you believe in it or you have a pet idea. I also believe in skipping ideation sessions. I know everybody thinks they're fun. They're also a lot of work, and they don't always come out with great ideas. So this is one of my favorite examples. This is actually the first innovation I launched as a brand manager back in working for the Keebler Snacks division of Kellogg. And one of the things, if you can imagine, so one of the things my R&D person did as you test food, if you can imagine a huge table laid out with multiple versions of Cheez-It, right? I walked into the R&D kitchen. And so we were tasting all the different versions of Cheez-It. And at the end of it, I noticed I shouldn't admit to this, but this is how I got here, is I ate one of the piles. And I said to him, Kevin, I'm like, what is this? This was great, right? You want something that is something somebody can't stop. It's so good that somebody can't stop eating it. And it absolutely was. It ended up being cheddar jack. And I was like, what flavor is this? What can we call it? So talked back to the seasoning house that we worked with and realized cheddar jack was one of the things that we could talk about. And based on that, didn't do consumer research, used my gut and launched this. And it is still in market today. This is something I did 18, 20 years ago. Again, it doesn't, great ideas can come from anywhere. It doesn't have to be an ideation session that you take an entire day. If you have a product that people can't resist, that multiple people are saying, wow, this is really good. If you eat a whole stack of something when you're testing it, there's something there to it. And this is one of the ones I was super excited about, and it's been in market and proved to be a sustainable innovation. So one of the things I also talked about, again, on leveraging existing research here. Another reason you can skip the ideation, you should, as you're going through this research, old concepts, you should be coming up with ideas, either better ideas, different ideas. But if you are truly going through this and thinking about the consumer, what you've learned, you should be coming up with new ideas. And the key is to capturing those. And I got to say, if you're not coming up with new ideas, honestly, maybe innovation isn't for you, right? Because all of this should fuel ideas and thinking about things in a different way. And the key is to capture them, make an idea database, and use that research to get a jump start. The other key area of being successful, easier said than done, I realize this, but is focus, laser focus. And Steve Jobs did the best at this on a couple of things. One is the importance of not just deciding what to do, because I think that's often where we spend time, but deciding what you shouldn't work on. What are you not going to do? So a very famous quote from him that I love, right? But you got to say no. And I think this is really difficult for people, especially for a leadership team. They think the more the merrier, the more ideas, the better you're going to be. But absolutely not. The more you work on the lack of focus, the more projects, right? If you're not prioritizing focus, you are going to break apart your efforts. You're not going to get as much done when you're working on too many things. And if you prioritize and pick carefully, the other key thing is saying no. Again, don't work on those failures. Don't get distracted by things like we always do. A customer comes in, oh, I want X, Y, and Z. Go back to what I said. Is it a consumer need? Can you offer a differentiated benefit that they're willing to pay for? Again, focus is key to having successful innovation. And the other thing too is procrastination. Not something you can do in innovation, to be honest. We all know it takes a really long time to be able to come up with innovation, especially great innovation. So the key is starting now, focusing on it, because a year from now, you're gonna be like, why didn't I do that? Or why was I distracted by XYZ that somebody said, oh, this is a great megatrend. Look over here, squirrel, right? Not something you want to do. The more you can do to keep your innovation on track, keep it focused on what's going to work, the better off and the more successful you're going to be. The other key, and as I've demonstrated earlier in sharing one of my failures, is lessons learned, right? Is absolutely critical to understand what went wrong. Because if you don't, you're willing to repeat it again. And one of the things I can absolutely say without a shadow of a doubt from my failure that I shared with you earlier is never happened again, right? Never, ever did that again. So it's so critical to look at lessons learned, understand what went wrong and what you could do better. And teams need to understand lessons learned isn't about finger pointing, right? It's the old definition of insanity, right? Thinking you could do the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. If you don't understand what went wrong, how can you explain it to a leadership team of how you're going to do better next time? Also, how are you not going to trip over it and do the same thing again? Again, to get results, you really need to understand that to not repeat the same mistakes in the past, especially another reason, again, to look at old concepts, to look at that the research that's already been done. You don't want to retread. Learn from that again and do things differently. So I appreciate you guys attending my session today. I hope that you took away some things that I've learned over my career. I also welcome the opportunity to connect with you, or if you have further questions as well. Here's my contact information. I do ask if you connect with me on LinkedIn, please let me know that you met me at the summit. Here's how to personalize the invite. I don't accept blind invites, but if somebody attended this, just let me know. And I look forward to hearing your questions. Thank you.